Will Carey. I'm your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you being here as always. Just wanted to go over a couple bits of business before we get to the episode today. On July 20th at 7:30 p.m., me and Tyler Richardson are going to be doing a co-headlining set at QED. We're each going to do 30 minutes of stand-up, and the very delightful Christy Cello is going to be hosting the event. Tickets are $5, so if you want to go to QED, QED's website is the name of the venue. I'll have a link in the description. You can also check out my Twitter feed. I'll have the link for tickets right at the top. So if you'd like to see me do 30 minutes of stand-up with another very funny comedian, Tyler Richardson, I would appreciate seeing you at QED in Astoria in New York City on July 20th. So let's get into it a bit today. On the show today is my very good friend Ben Conrad. Ben is one of the first guys I met when I started doing comedy in New York, and he's recently transitioned out of performing stand-up and works more as a producer, which is an interesting decision that I would like to talk to him more about, because there's still a part of me that gets a little, I don't want to say, I'll say kind of depressed when one of my friends quits doing comedy. He's still around, so maybe he doesn't feel like he's missing out on as much as maybe I would be. But I really wanted to talk to him about that, and then also I want to get into a little bit about my weekend this past weekend. If you're listening to this in the future, the last week of June 2016, I went down with my girlfriend back to my hometown. That would be Lusby, Maryland, in Calvert County. If anyone happens to be listening to this from my high school, go Panthers. Not really a go team. Was not that guy in high school, but gosh, was I in the theater department. I was very in the theater department, as you could imagine. So my girlfriend and I went, and we spent 3 days staying with my dad and my stepmom, which was something my dad had been offering for years, but I have resisted because I was angry at him. And if you come see my one-man show, I go into a lot more detail about why I was angry regarding his divorce from my mother. So 3 days, and my girlfriend is the prototypical New York City, born and raised sort of personality. She's very upfront, and I was wondering at what point, because my dad's a redneck at heart, and I was wondering at what point we were going to talk about guns. And we started talking about guns at midnight on a Saturday with a full bottle of whiskey, and then by the end, we had an empty bottle of whiskey, and I had it just got heated. I've gotten to the point where it comes to debating politics with my dad, where I try to treat it like a hockey fight, where there's going to be a lot of fire, going to be a lot of passion, but at the end we're going to go to our mutual corners and be amicable about it. I don't know if my girlfriend has that ability to detach from that so much. So it's kind of, and I don't know if anyone here maybe feels this way also, feeling like you're kind of stuck in the middle of a bunch of people that disagree with each other, but their common thing that they do agree on is that they like you or love you, and if you're lucky enough. And I don't really know how to handle that situation other than to just calmly make sure each side knows that they have a good point and go about the day as it is planned. So if you're in that situation, I wish you the best of luck. And if you are in that situation, you know how, and you deal with it better than I do, please let me know, because I can only try to friendly see both sides of an argument that I'm mostly pretty one-sided on anyway. So let me hear you if you're out there. So let's go into the meat of the show today. Let's go to my conversation with my friend Ben Conrad, and I'll check in with you at the end. All right. Thank you.
Voice will probably be like all the time when I'm 50.
Right. You're going for like the early Tom Waits approach.
Yeah.
Just sort of like that sort of like, oh, buddy, if you only knew.
It's kind of cool though. Like I like having that. Like I like what's happened to John Hurt's voice. The older he's gotten, you know.
Right.
Because now he can kind of sound like a mystical old wizard.
Exactly.
But who is clearly seen things, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's a voice it's a tone that like conveys wisdom.
Yeah, very much.
Know?
But danger.
Yeah, wisdom, danger. It would be like a good like roots or blues or country music voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, cause there's this country singer I like named Ryan Bingham. He's like a young guy, but he sounds like he's been gargling hot asphalt and broken glass for the past like 10 years.
Yeah.
He's got the early sort of like.
What does that come from? Like a lot of meth or something? Or
I don't know. I imagine it's a lot of maybe yelling, poor vocal technique, and whiskey.
Yeah.
That's what I always associate like gruffness with is whiskey.
Is that happen to like punk guys if they're like singers in bands and they're screaming and shit?
I think so. Like Henry Rollins.
Yeah.
Like the way like if you don't have good technique when you sing and if you're doing like aggressive like screamy kind of stuff, I think that will fry your vocal cords quickly. Like on one of Rollins' spoken word albums, he tells a story about going to a vocal doctor, like a famous like Hollywood vocal doctor, and the guy inspected his vocal cords and like asked him about, oh well, what kind of drugs do you do? And he's like, I don't do anything. Do you drink? And he's like, no, I drank 3 times when I was a teen. No, I don't drink. And he said like he has I'm gonna butcher the bit, but like he has like the vocal cords of like a hardcore drug addict.
He should have been like, well, I should have been doing cocaine this whole time then. Damn it. You know?
You could have. That was a missed opportunity for you.
At least earned it, you know?
Yeah. Did you ever do cocaine? I never did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? What's that like?
It's, yeah, I mean, I'm not a current practitioner of such, but I also sort of keep it at arm's length because I can be addictive. I definitely have an addictive personality, so like my general rule is I'll do cocaine if I'm on vacation. Like, if I'm on vacation, then it's on. You know, I'll party.
Right.
Or like sometimes it comes
and if
around,
you're in a good like a cocaine town like Miami or something.
Yeah. And well, like, but you can always see, or at least once you know who the coke people are. Who you see them and I don't sort of let myself get wrapped up in going off and doing some blow or whatever. It just because it becomes what your entire night is about.
Is about the cocaine or being on cocaine.
And when you do it, it's great fun. It really is. I like to describe it as if you want to have 5 hours worth of conversation in 30 minutes, you do some cocaine and you'll talk about everything and
just get it all figured out.
It's like, okay, like here, the difference between like cocaine and Adderall. Adderall is confidence and cocaine is irrational confidence. Where,
like obscene levels of confidence.
Yeah, we're not like with Adderall. Like you're confident, but you're also reasonable. You're making a plan that's a real plan. and But with cocaine, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna be an astronaut. I really am. I'm gonna join NASA. You can join NASA. Anybody can join NASA. Just fill out an application, get a physical. I'll go to the gym. I'll be in NASA. You watch.
Right.
I doubt that's like a thing. But you do get really worked up and chatty and maybe a little paranoid.
I really want to meet the astronaut that says, "Oh, how did you become an astronaut?" Well, I was doing a bunch of cocaine.
Yeah. Just doing some really wicked cocaine.
In Orlando after Disney World closed in the parking lot, and I thought, I want to go to space. How do I get to space?
I was parking cars and walking dogs part-time, and I was in an improv troupe, and I decided, what, fuck it. I'm going to be in NASA.
That would be that would be like the first positive cocaine story that I've heard.
Yeah. I bet that there are because law of averages or statistics or whatever, I'm sure there have been good ideas had while on cocaine, but just most of them are just kind of crazy and unreasonable. I had a first today.
Oh, what was that?
I was just thinking about this. A very first, as you were on your way over, I got home and I had to take a shit. Like, I had like an urgent. Like it was gurgling,
Right.
It was one of those where you get that gurgle and it's like, okay, that's your 15-second warning to get this out.
Exactly.
Or it's all going in your pants. And I go in the bathroom and I see, oh shit, I didn't pick up toilet paper. I don't have any toilet paper. So clock's ticking and I'm just kind of looking around the apartment. I'm like, do we have Kleenexes? Do we have paper towels? No. And so I'm like, okay, this is happening anyway. And I took a shit, and then I got in the shower. I've never done a shower to clean yourself off from a shit before. Like, I always hear stories of it happening. But I'm glad that you ran late, because I was really hoping to not have to, like, answer a message to be like, I can't come down, I'm showering to clean off my ass. I can need you to wait 10 minutes or take a walk around the block or something.
I was wondering if what the move too fast wink emoji was. Is that your way of saying, dude, I'm gonna have to destroy my bathroom when I get back?
Actually, no, I was still in the Uber on my way back here, and the shit hadn't even occurred to me yet. It didn't occur to me until I was walking up the steps to my apartment, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. Are you finding, because how old are you, if I
39.
So you're 39. I just turned 30. So
by the way, this is Ben Conrad. Hi.
Oh yes. Oh no, I was going to tell them who you are.
Okay. And how long have we been talking? Like 10 minutes?
7 minutes.
It's very nerdist of us.
Yeah. I just figured, like, just go get right on into it. Just real smooth. Like,
yeah.
I've been finding since I've turned 30, maybe not immediately when I turned 30, but as I've gotten older and I still continue to kind of eat the same food that I've always eaten, that my body revolts much faster.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's I remember the first time I had heartburn. And it was in my early 20s. But I used to be like fatter than I am. Like I'm a little chubby, but I used to be way fatter.
Right.
And part of the reason why was because I would order like whole Papa John's pizzas and eat them in the span of 24 hours. And one time I got one with jalapeno peppers on it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember what the other toppings were, but there were jalapeno peppers on it. And after like my fourth slice, I felt this burning inside in my chest. And I was like, what the shit is that? I was like, oh, this is heartburn. This is heartburn. This is why you shouldn't do this. Like, this is why. And at that point, I was like, oh, okay, you're reaching. Like, I had eaten like that before and not gotten heartburn. But it's like, okay, now this is the thing that's going to happen to you. You have to be careful about eating hot things.
Yeah. I find I have to start like planning it out.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm in Chinatown, probably should like pull back on putting sriracha on a bunch of things.
Sure.
But if I'm like in my neighborhood, I could, just sriracha all day.
Yeah. I have to be careful now about, or like the poop I had this morning was pretty much just like beer, and I think all I had to eat last night was a slice of pizza, so there wasn't a lot of food in there.
So you're going hard last night?
Yeah. It was a late night, but I was in Bushwick watching a show. And,
what show?
It was something like Filthy Fridays or something. It was at a place called Precious Metal.
Okay.
And it was Allison Klemp and like one or two other producers. It was a good show. It was
Nice.
kind of an ambush show, but the audience was really game for it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I have a pretty good ambush show story from this past Thursday.
Oh yeah. What happened?
I was at it was in Bushwick also, off of the Morgan stop. Interestingly enough, they're opening a location of this really awesome Tokyo-based ramen restaurant in Bushwick that I'm really excited about. I walked by and I was like, holy shit.
Have you been to Tamashi Ramen in Astoria?
No, I haven't.
It's on Broadway, right by like the Broadway NQ stop.
Oh, great.
And it is dope. Like, it's so good. I'm not that big of a ramen guy, but like to me it's like too much food because the bowl is like gigantic.
Yeah.
there's like noodles and like a fucking corn cob and an egg and a human head. Like there's all sorts of oyster shells and like
Right.
and some pocket change.
Bamboo shoots. It's like the Ben and Jerry's of soup.
An abandoned lottery ticket. Like the kitchen
A winning
sink.
lottery ticket, but it expired yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, the worst.
Everything. But it's good. I like it.
I'm gonna go there. So I was doing the show at Arrogant Swine Barbecue.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Ooh.
I had a half pound of pork belly with crispy shallots and a sweet potato waffle with bourbon maple syrup. Oh, it's amazing. So I get there, and I get there before everyone else because like I'm gonna eat before everyone else gets there. And
Wait, is this going to tie into comedy, ambush shows, and pooping? Are we going to bring everything together? Is there a poop story in here?
I do think if you have a really good barbecue place, you need a pretty extensive bathroom setup.
Yeah.
Because people are going to need to shit
Yeah.
at your place.
Yeah.
But luckily that didn't happen. But I was like sitting around and I was eating outside on a picnic table, and the trucks are coming by because on their shipping routes, and I started thinking, oh, I wonder where the show's going to happen. And then my friend Eric gets there, and he's the producer, and we learned that there's like no signage for the show. So he goes around and he asks, and he just politely informs people that there's going to be a show.
Yeah.
And it's me and a couple of other comics that I knew from my time in Baltimore.
By the way, listeners, in Bushwick, if you're not familiar, there's a lot of bars you go to where you're having a drink with your friends, and all of a sudden a comedy show just starts happening.
It just happens.
Because the bars just don't tell you. They're just like, well, whatever, just start talking in your microphone and it will be fine. And
Exactly.
sometimes it's fine, but sometimes it's like, we just wanted to have a night out.
Exactly. And then your art's being thrown at you. It's sort of like when a homeless person confronts you, only it's art.
Or it's like we're like
it's a
the
performance.
mariachi band on the subway, sort of, where it just insists upon
It insists upon happening.
like this is happening. Whether you like, yeah, but go ahead.
So he tells everyone the show's going to happen, and he goes up, does like 10 minutes up front, and this like homeless guy speaking in Polish comes in, and so he riffs, and so they have to talk for a while, and then each of us proceeded. The first two comics go up and just to ignored.
How many people in the bar?
I would say at the time there's a bunch of people eating, so I'd say there's maybe 10 people just paying attention to their food.
Yeah, they're almost like, were they almost like dedicatedly looking at their food?
Yeah.
And not like
doing like a Jurassic Park, like don't move.
like the way I look at
this.
my phone when a homeless beggar comes on the train.
Yes.
Where I'm just like, I'm not looking up, not making eye contact. 'Cause I'm a horrible
Exactly.
person, and yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just a wall of apathy.
Like they're just like tacos, nothing happening here, just tacos.
Right. And so I knew that's what it was going to be. So I went up and I just plowed through a bunch of stuff, and then eventually one family, I did get one kind of like laugh, so I would stop, kind of a thing. Like I'm good. And then one guy actually said one more joke, and you know, I feel like sometimes maybe even myself, maybe other comics in that situation, if an audience member just says to you like one more joke, you might get angry at that.
Yeah.
But I was just like, no, okay, good, I agree.
Like, but I'm imagining it. That's like when a lady fakes an orgasm. Like you got like a fake orgasm laugh, so you would think you were done.
Exactly.
That's great. Like, I mean, the Emba shows are hard though, because they
are.
I did one in it was up in Harlem at a restaurant, and there was maybe the 2 tables had people at them in the restaurant. The rest was just the comics.
Right.
And one of the tables was right by the stage. It was this lovely family. It was a mom and her young son. Like, he was an adult, but he was young.
Right.
And who I guess was his girlfriend. The 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way I know I did well because they actually stopped eating and looked up at me.
That's a good
while I
sign.
was performing. When comics were eating it, they were just like looking at the food, just eating, not paying attention. But I actually got them to put their utensils down and like look up at me and laugh a little bit, and like that was literally the best validation you were going to get.
Yeah,
in that room.
that's good. And let me ask you this: Did you accept the situation for what it was and then just go up and do your thing, or did you? Because sometimes, like, I don't know how to comment on the situation. Like, I was sort of doing it as a, like, I realize what this is and don't feel that I'm unaware.
Yeah.
But I still just go up and do what I'm asked to do. I go and I do my thing.
Well, it's
like, I don't complain or comment during my set.
I think you can comment without being too. You can walk a fine line because it's almost weird to not acknowledge how like weird it is. Because I was basically like in my situation, I was basically interrupting these people's quiet dinner at this quiet restaurant and just throwing my art in their face. And so I think if you're too complainy about it, you look like you're miserable.
Right.
And that's not fun for anyone to watch, you know? And
yeah.
But you can still, like, you take the tact of looking at them and being like, it's fucked up, right? Like, you guys are trying to have some dinner, and I'm up here just screaming about my dick, you know? Like, and
right.
But you have to do it in a sort of celebratory, well, this is happening, but man, this is really fucking your night up. And,
yeah.
you know, there's a way to do it.
Exactly.
But you have to come at it from an empathetic or sympathetic. I never know the difference.
I think empathetic in this way.
Yeah.
And like you understand that this was not a part of what their evening, their intended evening was.
Yeah. But
you're not gonna like force yourself on there. You're not.
Yeah. And you're also not going to bring the room down by being like, there's no one here. Why did I start doing comedy?
Yeah, I know.
You know, because then it's like, oh, I get to watch this person's meltdown now while I eat.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what ended up happening at this was before I went on stage, this guy from North Carolina, because I'd seen him walk by earlier with his parents, be like, oh yeah, this barbecue, it's just like home. And then I was like, oh, that's the most Brooklyn thing that has ever happened.
Wait, say that again?
This kid from North Carolina, he was talking about how authentic the barbecue was. And I guess he was going to school in the city or something.
This is an audience member?
No, it was just a guy outside eating.
Outside,
and then he walks out and talks to me and my friend, and we're not he doesn't know that we're comics. And then he says, oh man, those guys are terrible. This terrible comedy show is happening. I was like, I know, we're on that show. And he looked mortified.
Oh God. Like he thought you guys were going to beat him up or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this kind of leads into this.
That's hilarious though. Like, God, that show sucks, right? We're on it. Oh, bye.
Yeah.
I would do that shit.
Yeah.
I would try and relate outside and not realize I was talking to the comedians and just be like, man, these guys are shit in the bed. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. You're going to be all right. Yeah. It's gonna be fine. Because now this is what I kind of want to ask you, because I wonder if maybe your decision to move more into producing shows is a result of maybe too many of those kinds of doing too many of those kinds of shows.
No, I had towards the end of my run.
Which, how long did you actually
5 years
do stand up? 5 years?
Yeah.
Did you start in New York?
I did, which they say you should never do, but I did.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to spend, the first 3 years just kind of being horrible most of the time, and then trying to rebuild that reputation, But I think by the time I was done, I was having more good sets than bad.
That's good.
Even in like bad rooms, I was sometimes able to salvage a good set.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was that I was concerned about standing out. Because I'm a chubby, bearded, white guy comedian.
Right.
So there are thousands of me, like just thousands. You
Sure.
know? And so not only do I have to be funny, I've got to be the funniest, chubby, bearded, white guy. Which that's hard. That's really hard. Like if I were like, I don't know, if I were like Argentinian with one leg missing or something, all I got to do is be the funniest Argentinian with one leg missing.
Right.
But that's not in the cards for me. And I'm not lamenting that. I'm not saying I should, that it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
I just think that that's what it is, for good or for bad. But so I think I always consider myself a good comedian.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I'd ever be a great one, or if I even had the will carry to to become that. But producing always came pretty natural.
Mm-hmm.
It caters to my control issues.
Which, does that also maybe feed into your addictive personality?
Sure. Well, because I'm still, even with stand-up, you're chasing the high of laughter and applause. I'm still chasing that high.
Right, you're chasing the high of pulling off a good show.
Yeah, I'm chasing the high of being the guy who pushed the button, who made the show that made everyone so happy happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like being God, I guess.
No, yeah, and in fact, a way I think there's definitely more control, or maybe in a certain sense, I don't want to say power, because that sounds like too like Krang and
not
Shredder.
At my level. I don't have any power, but yeah, it is control.
Yeah.
In that, especially when you produce something that's more conceptual, where you're not just booking stand-ups. Like I can book stand-ups in my sleep, and it doesn't require much effort.
And in New York, because there's just so many. There's just so many shows that you could go to.
You send out you want to book 5 comics, send out 10 messages, you'll have 5 comics in a half an hour, like who say yes. And so I do that. I have a show where I do that, but my conceptual shows are great because you have to come up with bits and just ways to kind of keep the laughter going in between comics. And that's hard to do because you run the risk of slowing your show down, fucking up momentum for the comedians, because ultimately you want to facilitate a good room for comedians to perform.
Yeah.
So if you are going to do sketches and bits between comedians, keep them short.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had to learn, sometimes just some bits work, some don't. But I like that because I'm still creating. I'm not just booking.
Right.
I'm creating. And I get a charge out of that.
Right. So you're still doing something creative.
Yeah.
Even if you're not doing stand up.
Yeah.
How many shows do you run right now?
5.
Well, what are the conceptual ones?
Snake Oil is a show I run at the Creek in the Cave, and it's me and my buddy Dan King. And the premise of the show is we are con artists who every show we have a new idea or product or something that we want to sell America that we think would be really great. And we also book like-minded business people who come on with ideas about ways to improve your life that are completely fraudulent. Just completely like it is all con artists and like one comedian. We book like one comedian.
Yeah.
And but it's fun because it's what you call a homework show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like whenever we ask somebody, we make sure that they want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and that they're not just gonna do some bullshit last minute and phone it in. Like we don't want that.
Yeah.
So that's that show. There's Petey's World that I do with Petey D'Abreu, and that it's like a talk show / stand-up show. It's like if Jimmy Fallon had all stand-ups.
Cool.
And they all sat panel and like talk to each other, and it just kind of turns into sort of a controlled chaos, like free for all. So there's a lot that goes into planning that. Because we do different kinds of bits. We do like some video sketches. We do like live reads. We have characters come on, you know, like comedy Bang Bang style. That show I love because we're just kind of throwing a lot of shit against the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of fun. And some of the stuff has worked really well, and we've laid a few eggs here and there. But that's gonna happen, you know. But the fun is in trying like new stuff. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. The other one is Art School Acid Dropout.
Oh, you do that with Grant?
Yeah, he brought me on. The show changed its time slot. And it went from being a Sunday night show to a Friday night show.
Yeah.
And so he brought me on, and I think he just wanted like a sounding board, like somebody to sort of bounce ideas off of and help plan stuff. And so I've got to do that. And like that show is just kind of bananas because we're, when's this coming out?
Not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, which is like the 12th or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, perfect. The next Art School Acid Dropout is July 15th.
Cool.
And we have a GoFundMe link.
Will you send that to me?
Yeah.
This is for the ball pit, right?
Yeah, we're trying to raise money to turn the Creek in the Cave theater into a ball pit. So the whole audience will just be a ball pit that you'll climb into to watch the show.
I really want that to happen.
Yeah. We need to raise $1,500 to do it. And besides that, Grant is trying to get a real knife thrower to come on the show to throw knives at him. And I know, right? Like it sounds exciting, but like that stuff, I love that stuff, but I'm also like really like my producer brain kicks on and I'm like, okay, I know, but I've seen these YouTube videos where the knife thrower like throws the knife and it just goes right into his assistant's like arm. You know? I'm like, what if that happens? I know it's like 1 in 1,000, but what if this night at the Creek in the Cave is that 1 in 1,000 time?
You start getting the practical. Like that sounds awesome, but
yeah, like I don't want to have to like mop blood off the Creek stage,
right?
And have to apply a tourniquet and stuff like that, you know, like but even still, like despite my sort of nervous Nelly-ness, fuck yeah, I'll watch that. Like, you know,
no,
like
yeah, that's definitely something that you're like, I need to see that, and I partially because of he might actually get hit with the knife.
Yeah. He did a stunt on the last show. He inflated a weather balloon on stage and climbed into it and then popped it from the inside. And when he told me he wanted to do that, I'm like, okay, we're going to practice that because I don't know what's going to happen when you inflate a weather balloon and then pop it indoors. Like, is there going to be any kind of mess? Is it going to break anything? Is there going to be like some sort of air pressure that like knocks out the lights or something? Like, what's going to happen? Because I've never been next to a giant popping balloon, you know? I don't know what happens.
Right.
And so we practice it, and Grant's filling it up, and while he's climbing inside it, me and the Creek in the Cave tech, Mary Kelly, this was actually on I think Instagram video or something. Grant's girlfriend records Grant climbing into the balloon, pans over to see me and Mary running to the back of the theater to get behind the curtain.
I saw that, I think.
Yeah, because we were both like, I don't know, when he pops this thing, like, is our pieces gonna go flying? Like, what? Which it ended up being fine. But incidentally, like, giant weather balloon, it feels like a giant unlubricated condom. And smells like it.
Right.
Like it's a very
Just
soft
that rubber smell.
rubber. Like, it feels almost wet. You know, it's so soft, and like you could really. It was pretty durable, actually. Funny thing is, when he did the bit, the balloon popped early. Like, there was supposed to be this whole back and forth between him and his girlfriend. But as soon as he got in it, just when it pops, it just kind of collapses. Because he wasn't filling it like all the way to capacity. He was actually probably filling it about 2/3 of what it could be. And so when you pressed your hand, it would like sink like into it.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, he does weird shit like that, and that's why I love working with him. He's kind of crazy.
He has that sort of like Micah art school sort of vibe about him.
Yeah.
Do you like that? Do you have a background in liking that absurdist kind of stuff?
In fact, quite the opposite. Yeah. I like, I went to film school, right?
Okay, where did you go to film school?
Chapman University in Orange, California.
Yeah, are you from California?
No, I'm from Kentucky originally.
Ah, yes.
But see, at film school, like, I was the guy who, like, one of the hottest movies of the time was Punch Drunk Love. And all the film school nerds were like, man, Punch Drunk Love's so good. And I was just like, I think it kind of sucks and is boring. And I was the kid who hated Jim Jarmusch movies and all the things that film nerds were just, jerking each other off over.
Right.
I always hated hearing a film student say "Y tu mama también." Like, they would all pronounce it like really super. They would lean into the Spanish pronunciation, and it's like, dude, you're Polish. What are you doing?
Right.
So film school has its pretension. It's kind of an art school sort of way. But I was always kind of pushed back against that. So working with Grant, though, like, I know that sometimes he has ideas that I don't completely understand. Where I'm like, I don't know why this is a cool idea, but I like that it's out of my element. You know? And I like working with Petey for the same reason. Petey is like this super positive dude from the Bronx with like a criminal history and a lot of there's a lot of negative circumstances in his life that despite that he's unflappably positive. Incidentally, one of his and I's favorite words is unflappable. Like, he just loves looking at people and going, yo, you unflappable? Like, it's kind of a weird mantra for him now. Like, once he heard the word, sometimes when he hears a word that he didn't know but he decides he loves it, he'll just start saying it over and over again. And like, unflappable is one of those words. But like, Petey, his brain, he thinks a lot differently than I do.
Yeah.
And sometimes he'll have an idea about something and I won't completely understand why it's funny. But with him and Grant both, I trust them to be like, okay, I don't get it, but if you say that this is a cool idea, let's do it. And generally it ends up working out. Like, their instincts are good, and it's great to work with guys like that who you can just trust. Yeah. And though I don't completely understand why you want to do this way, I can't argue against it. So let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of fun. I get a lot. I feel like I'm still learning. Which is wonderful at my age to be able to say that I'm still learning about new shit, and it's wonderful.
Exactly. You're not like locked into your ways of this is the only way things can be and everything else is stupid.
Yeah. Because I think the minute you do that, the minute you stop learning or stop thinking that you have to learn, you fail.
Yeah.
You fail. You'll always sort of be a step behind.
Exactly. No, yeah, exactly. Like, there's those like guys that, because if we were all just still doing like the straight stand-up show where like everybody does 10 minutes into infinity, gosh, that would get boring.
Yeah. And to me, like, my approach to producing is I want to produce a show that I would want to go watch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think there's a lot of comedy shows, and there are a lot of comedy shows where I don't understand what the thinking is and how it's produced, because the ones where like the producers don't try at all, where it's like zero efforts put into promoting it, and then they have the nerve to look surprised when there's no one in their audience, but they didn't do any social media. They booked their friends on the show instead of booking like credited comedians.
Right. This is also something I want to ask you too, is what are some of the things you do and that you think make a successful show that's going to at least generate some attention. So you're saying these guys that like, just they don't book like good, I guess, don't book names or people with at least some sort of,
I like to say book aspirationally.
Uh-huh.
Like Lucas Connolly and I would run the Dirty Show at QED, and he and I have produced together going back 4 years now, to the show I had before that, Cranky Pants. And he and I both, or when he came on, he sort of changed the booking philosophy. So he was like, this is a good show, but you need to book it better.
Right. I know, because I asked him about it, and he was like, yeah, we usually have names.
Yeah. And
Which I get.
Well, and our goal became, and I bought into his way because it was right. Is we book a show that neither of us would ever be able to get booked on. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how you should book your show. Is book a show that you could never get booked on, but it's your show. And it allows you to sort of be among like really great comedians, and maybe they see you. And so you get a chance to sort of shine in front of good comedians. Might not have a great audience, but it doesn't matter. Like it
right.
So there's that. Location matters, obviously. Like
you have good locations. Like QED is a great location, like locally, and then Creek is very good. So you need places that are
supportive of it, places that I feel like sometimes it seems like some producers just pull a bar out of a hat, and like a bar where like, whatever, there's no separate room, but we're just going to set up a microphone and start doing a show.
I would never produce a show in a room that didn't have a separate room or a stage or microphone.
I don't understand why you'd want to make it. Why are you making it that much harder on yourself? Like we were talking about Precious Metal earlier. Now that was an ambush show, but it was pretty brilliant what I saw, because like Clemp was hosting and they were a little bit chatty while she was doing her host set. But then she brings up the first comedian, and God bless them, they all just kind of settled down and watched the show. A couple of them left because they weren't into it, but the rest of them just settled in and watched, and it turned into a really good experience. But that is actually the outlier. Like that's not the norm. That's rare, and I'm sure they have some nights that aren't that great, but I don't understand why a producer will make it so hard on themselves. Maybe it's just a lack of availability of separate room bars. I don't know.
Maybe.
Or some bars just aren't into hosting comedy. But location matters, how you book it, and like just what you put into it. If you're gonna have just a stand-up show, that's fine. Then book the greatest comedians you can get. But if you don't, really sort of, if you're doing bits on your show, don't write them the fucking day of. Like, actually, like, take time to craft something that's good. Just because, like, if you want to work in television, you're going to need to know how to put shit together, how to sort of plan a show and beat it out and stuff like that. It's good practice,
Absolutely.
But it should be something that create a show that if you weren't a comedian, or if you like were just not performing one night, what do you want to go watch?
Yeah.
And sort of like, don't do something that you just think people would want to watch. Do something that you want to watch. And that to me is the best way.
Yeah. Same way it goes into like when you're writing stuff, don't write shit that you just because you think people are going to like it.
Yeah.
Write stuff that you like first, and then find the people that like it.
See, that's how you get all those like young adult ripoffs and shit. Like once like the Hunger Games became a thing, then there's the one
There's
with
a
the
million.
maze and the one with the blah blah blah.
Yeah, there's like a million dystopian teenage
and
books.
that's all like some agent saying, oh, the Hunger Games is popular. Write a dystopian story about children murdering each other, like, and that's such an impure place to come at it, and it's reflected in the quality of the product. Whereas if
comes off cynical, calculated.
Whereas if you tapped an author and just said, hey, write something you want to write, and let's see what we get, I guarantee you that book is better.
Yeah,
I guarantee you, just because it comes from a genuine place.
I agree. That's why, like, I've been getting really into, and I know I'm very late to the party, but I've been aware of the Chris Gethard show for a really long time.
I still haven't watched it. I'm listening to his podcast a lot. But
Beautiful Anonymous?
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, so good.
I actually started listening to it because you posted that it was really good.
Did you listen to the new one with the woman whose mom has early onset dementia?
No, but I've heard.
Or early onset Alzheimer's?
I've been listening to the one where the woman finds out that her husband's a child molester.
Oh, I haven't listened to that one yet.
That one is fucking crazy.
Ooh. That does.
I'm about halfway in. It's great. Like, I met him once. Because I went to when he recorded his album at the Creek.
Mm-hmm.
I was standing in the back, but I missed the second half because the woman next to me fainted.
Oh no.
And she needed help. And then I went up to him, I shook his hand, and I told him that story. He was like, "What?" Because it was happening. He was doing this bit about the TV show I Survived, which is like a graphic, like true, true crime.
Oh, I think I remember this bit.
Yeah. And I would really like to meet him because he's sort of like indirectly does a lot of the things that I'd like to do. Like he does story, like he has a storytelling show. Like he did a storytelling show. His bits are very long form, which is something I've been moving more towards as opposed to just straight hot take joke writing.
Tweets.
Yeah, tweets.
Reading my tweets tonight, everybody.
Yeah, I can't fucking stand that. I can't fucking stand
that joke was a really good tweet. Why didn't you like it?
Yeah. Or one time I was working the door at a comedy club during a festival, and some comic did a joke and it bombed. He was like, "I told that on TV." I'm like, "Well,
keep it on TV, buddy." No.
Right, but yeah, he's sort of the model for, I think, someone who did something really unique to what he wanted to do, especially after he was on a sitcom and he was on Big Lake and it didn't do well, and he sort of like wanted to do the thing that he liked to do, and that was that, and then it kind of grew organically.
Yeah, and what's cool about I think the sad thing is he came into stand up already as kind of an established, not established, but like I knew who he was.
Right. And he was he had all this improv experience,
super skilled improv guy. I actually loved Big Lake. I was sad it got canceled. But like, so I think that I bet that gave him the confidence to just go with that long form style. Mm-hmm. But like, this, like starting out, like there are people who will try and beat that out of you. And be
you
no,
have to get to the
word
joke.
economy,
Right.
word economy. Laughs per minute, laughs per minute. Be like a tell,
Right. Which for a nightclub, I still feel is I'll still do that in a comedy club.
Yeah,
because they don't have the attention span.
Yeah,
but
especially for like your average like 5 to 8 minute, comedy club set. Yeah.
Yeah,
you can't really do that.
Yeah, everyone wants the tight 5 and exactly laughs per minute.
Yeah, but fortunately for him, I think he came into it in a place where no one could do that. He wasn't going to open mics, or I don't know if he was or not, but he was just showing up at shows he did my show twice.
Which one?
Cranky Pants.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and he like when he first came around, he was a lot easier to get. Now he's not as easy to get now. But he and I didn't talk much. He was very quiet. I got a sense of like a little bit of social anxiety there. But once he went up and performed, just
tore the house
lifted.
down.
Yeah. Really, even like early on, like his his storytelling was rock solid. It wasn't my cup of tea as far as like style, but he was good at it.
Yeah. What's more your cup of tea stylistically? And then I also want to ask you about approaching these big names, because a lot of times I think, oh, it'd be cool to get that person, and then I just like, there's no way they would ever do my free show at the Creek.
Well, okay. Style-wise, I don't know. It varies because it's not that I shun long form or anything. It's just that it's not usually what I go for. But in the right hands of like a Chris Gethard or a Mark Maron or something like that, it can be
someone who's going to have
extremely funny,
right?
Because even in that medium, there is still a laughs per minute component.
Right, there are jokes along the way.
Yeah, it's just the details you choose to magnify. I guess though stylistically, I like the good joke writers who kind of dip their toe in weird, like T.J. Miller, or Rory Scovel, or Nick Vatterott, or Maria Bamford, or I guess dip their toe in weird. So sometimes they just dive right into weird. Or even the more sort of showy ones like Pete Holmes or something like that. Who are like just big and like I like to categorize every comedian. I think is along a spectrum of, on one end there's writer, and on the other end there's performer. And I think the best comedians are somewhere in the middle. Yeah, like they strike a perfect, like somebody like Chappelle, I think.
Yeah, great writer
the
and
perfect balance between performer and writer. Like absolutely. I think Louis C.K. does.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I think for the longest time I've been more on the writer side of that. And trying to move to that middle ground.
Yeah, I think that. Now you go back to some of the greats, like I think Richard Pryor, leans more towards performer. Eddie Murphy leans more towards performer.
Yeah.
Still good writers, but I think they just kind of tip to the performer side. Carlin, I think, tips more to the writer side, just because of the sort of meticulousness with his word choice and his sentence structure, and there's deliberate writing craft there. He's got a high performer bent too, but I think it's more about the writing. Jerry Seinfeld, writer. John Mulaney, writer. Pete Holmes, performer.
Yes.
Very much so.
Yeah, and I think his stand-up's mostly is rooted in his improv background. Sure.
Like, and a lot of the funniest things I've ever heard him say were stuff he thought up on the spot, but he's kind of coming at it with, I'm not just telling you a joke, I am performing this joke, and I'm adopting, I'm changing the volume of my voice, and like Eddie Pepitone, huge performer.
Yeah.
Which I love. I think some people want to invalidate that, or I think a lot of comedians have bias towards the writer comedians.
Yeah.
And they want to shit on the performer ones because it's like, oh, they want to be an actor,
Yeah, or or maybe the performance is to mask how weak the material is.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I think you can. I'm gonna really lean into this accent I'm gonna do to hide the fact that this is a poorly written racial stereotype joke. I think that can happen all the time, but and I think some people look at performer comedians and that's all they see. They're like, I don't see any work here, and it's like, well, no, like there's work.
Yeah.
The writing needs to be fixed, maybe, but I think performer comedy is totally valid. And it's totally hard to do. Like, imagine if Jerry Seinfeld tried to be like Pete Holmes. Like, tried to be like super big and like changing the volume of his voice and doing just all of a sudden busting out with a weirdly accurate celebrity impression of like Al Pacino or something. It would blow your fucking mind. And it would be so out of character for him. He would probably be horrible at it.
Right.
Probably be absolutely horrible at it, I guess what I'm saying is stay in your lane.
Or I guess, yeah, because you got to do a lot of different things before you find the thing that you do really well.
Yeah.
And then you can get better at the thing that you do really well. And then not lament. Like, I'm not good at sketch.
Right.
I'm bad at sketch. I can act in sketches, but I have a hard time writing them.
Yeah.
My strength, I can write. I've written pilots and other longer things, but I cannot do short sketches to save my life.
Yeah.
So I've been focusing more on. Okay. If I'm not strong at that, I'll focus on jokes. I'll focus on this story show I'm working on. I'll play to my strengths, and then hopefully, if I'm good at that, that's worth money to.
You ever take a sketch writing class?
Never have.
I took the first 2 at UCB, and you mind if I suck UCB's dick for a second?
No, yeah, of course.
Okay. Sketch 201 I'll go back. Sketch 101, you write a new sketch every week. So it's kind of great because for 10 weeks you're just writing a different sketch every week, and a couple of the ones I wrote were actually decent. I wrote one in Sketch 101 about it was a commercial from NAMBLA. And it was NAMBLA doing a commercial about the importance of good nutrition for kids so they don't get fat.
Okay.
It's
not gonna want to fuck him.
It's this NAMBLA guy, and he's walking through a park handing out apples to children, and the children are taking the apples and like following behind him while he's talking to the camera about the obesity rate in America and like saying little things, inserting little things that sell the pedophile angle. Like, he's like, there's one line where he's like, we want kids to grow up to be happy, healthy, vibrant adults who know how to keep a secret.
Right.
Like little things like that. And I ended up, I think I still have it. I'd love to shoot it sometime just because it was such a kind of crazy idea. But I'm getting off track.
I bet you and Frolix could shoot that.
I think it would be a lot of fun. It would be weird trying to cast kids for it.
I know, that's my biggest thing. Like, my producer side comes into is like, well, casting kids for this when I'm not on TV would be...
Yeah, it would be tough to do.
I'd probably get arrested.
It would be tough to do. But in 201, what they do is for the first couple of weeks, you're writing a new sketch every week for the first couple of weeks. Then what they do is like around week 3 or 4, they're like, write 2 sketches for next week. Just 2 sketches, about whatever.
And how long are they? Like 5 minutes?
Yeah, they don't want you to go much longer than 5 pages. Just cause the teacher will be like, bro, this is gonna take forever to read, blah blah blah. So I wrote 2 sketches. I wrote one that I really gave a shit about, and the other one was a throwaway.
Yeah.
And so we come in, we read these sketches, and then for the rest of the class, we were rewriting these sketches. We were having to come in with rewrites every week. And that was like huge for me because rewriting for me was hard. And I had this one sketch that I liked, which sure, I'll go back and keep working on that. But I had this throwaway that was like a sketch that took place in an office and like a boardroom and a male and female character. And,
right.
But what happened was I ended up liking that. By the end, my preference switched because I actually kept going back to this sketch that I half-assed my way through, banged out in 5 minutes, and I kept having to go back to it to try to make it good, which it ended up working out. Like, it turned into a viable, performable sketch by the time that class was done, but I would never have gotten it to that place had I not been compelled to.
Right.
Just by the class, you know? And so I got a lot out of that. That sometimes you're going to write a draft of something and it's just going to be horrible.
Yeah.
But that's what drafts are, you know, like first drafts. The key is like showing it to someone and being like, okay, what's in here that's good? Because sometimes it could be just like one little nugget of idea that you address and then abandon.
Uh-huh.
And you'd be like, no, that's the crux of it. That's what's funny. Keep playing that game, to use UCB words. Keep playing that game over and over and over again. That's where the goods are. But you have to be willing to sit down and, like, rewrite something. And that's tough. It's really tough to do without being compelled to.
Yeah.
Or being paid to.
Right. I've got I sent one of my scripts to a friend of a friend who's a TV writer, and he said it, needs to fit more jokes in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
more jokes, please.
yeah. So that's really informative. I think I learned a lot just from listening.
Yeah.
to that. So, man, this is good. This has been one of the more informative chats about, like, I don't want to say the business, but more of the less
Ben Conrad and Will Carey rapping about the biz, everybody.
Like,
who's horny?
Like, yes. I want to make sure that everybody who listens to my podcast is just totally wet by the end.
Yeah.
Just, like, maximize the wetness.
Like, not even listening. They're just fucking. Like, just not even a person. They're just fucking their couch, like, while they listen. Like, I just pictured you humping the couch.
Right. Now that's a performing comedian.
Yeah.
Right there.
Stool humper. We got a stool humper.
Yeah, classic. That would be a good show where you have, like, all these, like, very alt, or that would be a good show. You have a bunch of, like, alt or writer or comedians, and they all have to hump a stool at some point in their set.
Like, that would be a fun, like, you have little challenges, little, like, cliche challenges where, like, when a bell goes off, they have to start humping the stool.
Mm-hmm.
Or when it
I think that'd be a good theme show for the Cinderblock Comedy Festival.
When another bell goes off, you have to immediately abandon your premise. You have to abandon your premise and call it stupid.
be like, this joke fucking sucks.
This joke sucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That joke was a good tweet.
It was a good tweet. I am great on Twitter, folks.
Yeah.
Not good at being in front of people, but I am great on Twitter.
People, I'm internet famous. Okay.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, and we'll close that here. I hope you've enjoyed this chat. I feel like we didn't get into your emotion.
Dude, look at me right now. Look at me. I'm laying on a beanbag chair with my head on some pillows. Like, I could lay here for another 3 hours, and I'll talk to you about pizza, or government, or
nice.
fucking, or books, or TV. Now I'm just pointing out things in the room I see.
Oh, you're Randy Newmaning it. So let me ask you that. I guess let me ask you this. This is more of a producer question. Your philosophy, I think, works. Although your philosophy works, but let me ask you this: how do you go about approaching like
big names?
Yeah, and I'm not talking like like Attell or Chappelle or like big names like that, but like, I don't know, like Big J Okerson.
I really don't have a good answer for that, because I don't. A lot of the bigger comedians I've had on my shows, I was lucky enough to get a Facebook message response or an email response or something. Like it, like the bigger names I've had on Petey's World or Art School or The Dirty Show, a lot of times come from my co-producers. Mm-hmm. So I guess my answer is have a co-producer who's more connected than you.
Okay.
Who's better at making friends and can get people for you. Or like on the last Petey's World, we had Hassan Minaj from The Daily Show.
Nice.
Like, we didn't book him. He just got in touch with Rebecca Trent and was like, I need to run my congressional correspondence dinner set. Can I do it at one of your shows? And it's funny, the show before us said no. Wow. It was, well, no, they said no, not because they didn't want to, but because it was the Wildcats show. And
that would not have fit in there.
No, but Eli is a dick about time, like a dick in a good way, but he's a dick about time. Mm-hmm. And they always start late. about a half hour late, and they run for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Period. End of story. And every time, like clockwork, they're done at 9:30, and I love it because it gives us a half hour to set up our show.
Yeah.
But because of that, Hassam Minhaj showed up near the end, and they're like, "No, we can't put you up because we have to finish in an hour," and that's just what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So he came down and asked to be on Petey's World, so we put him up, and so I didn't book him; he just showed up. But yeah, I guess I'm sorry, too long didn't read, but have a more charismatic, more well-connected co-producer who might have access to like media, and like Grant, for example, he's done a lot of artwork for people like Big J Okerson and James Adomian and stuff like that. So, or like Lucas does a lot more comedy clubs than I did when I was performing. So he was seeing other big names, and the same goes for Petey. Like Petey's in clubs, and Petey's starting to kind of blow up a little bit, so he's getting on bigger and better shows. He's meeting people, and so I know that I tap into them when I want to get somebody I can't get at. But from what I know, Facebook actually isn't even the way to do it. You want to get their email.
Okay.
And if you can get their email, that's where you start. Like, don't try and go to their manager. Like, you're not paying them. So
Right.
one thing is, like, if you have a weeknight show, it should be a lot easier to get bigger names, because that's not a night anyone gets paid.
Okay.
Like on a Tuesday night, no one's making a lot of money from comedy in New York.
Right.
So I think for the most part, these guys want a good stage. I was talking to Christian Finnegan because his wife owns QED,
Yes.
and I was asking him, I'm like, how do we get somebody at your level to want to do my show? And he's like, for the most part, it's not that you have to pay us, it's that give us $20 for an Uber, and if we like the room and it's convenient, we're coming. Because it's something that if they know they're not getting paid, they want to be minimally inconvenienced by it. They want to know they're coming to a good room and that they're minimally inconvenienced by it, and it'll be worth their free time.
Okay.
So he's like, if you're like, we'll give you $20 for an Uber, if I got nothing else going on, I'm coming. He said for the most part, most like your Todd Berrys or your Judah Friedlanders or whatever, like, yeah, just be like, we'll pay for your Uber. And if it's like on a Tuesday night, whatever, Judah's not making a fuck ton of money anyway. As opposed to the kind of money you'd make on the weekend.
Right.
Or, going around and touring or something like that. So that's the key, especially if you run a weeknight show. You should try and get those people. It's harder for me on a Friday or a Saturday.
Because they're probably at the bigger clubs where you get
and
or out.
Both my venues sell tickets, but it's not like the $30 comedy club ticket. It's a $5 or a $10 smaller venues, and like not a lot of money's getting made. So I'm competing with higher paying comedy clubs, colleges, what have you, stuff that those comedians do on the weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good to know, because I'd had this idea, and I was going to ask Grant about it. His year-long comedy project. I wanted to ask if he'd want to do it again, but maybe we could try doing it monthly, where we have this core of people that we'll try to do a brand new 10 minutes each month, and then you get a bigger name to do longer. So this is really good for me. I have no idea if that concept would work, but I like the idea of it.
One other thing, back to like how to booking philosophy, is once in a while be open to booking a non-comedy act.
Okay.
Because, like, for example, I've got this mentalist that I've been booking on stuff a lot. And he's great. For one, because he's interesting and he does cool tricks that make people gasp and think he's magic. And, like, for those who don't know what mentalism is, it's like a psychic, but it's a psychic who says that magic isn't real. It's a psychic who's like, this isn't magic.
Yeah.
This is just, I'm just figuring this out, It's they make it sound like much more of an actual process, and I've been booking him lately, and one, because he delivers, but two, he's got friends who come and watch him, Because for the most
Yeah.
part, he gets booked at like private parties
Uh-huh.
and stuff like that, where his friends can't go to see him, or like maybe a little maybe a little band or like a magician, not a magician, but like you know what I mean? Like put something different on your show, like we had a ventriloquist on Petey's World,
Okay.
but he was like a hood ventriloquist, and
Nice.
stuff like that. Number one, you might get that person's audience in your audience, but two, somebody who just wanders in to your show is going to see something different, and I think it makes people value your show more when there's something distinct about it, or you're trying something a little different, because
Okay.
it's refreshing to see that, because there's a million, like when someone's looking at the Skint or Time Out New York or whatever, and they're trying to decide what show to go to. They're choosing from a list of comedy shows full of names that they probably don't know, so they're indistinguishable from for them going to a show at Karma Lounge versus going to a show at Otto's Shrunken Head. The two are indistinguishable. It's a coin toss for them.
Yeah.
So you have to find a way to give them a little extra reason. Either do that through like the comedians you book, or we're gonna have a knife thrower. Like something where they're like, oh, I kind of want to see that. I be open to that. You don't always
Okay.
have to do that, but be open to that. Just because, like, if it gets you anything you can do to get 2 or 3 extra asses in seats, is worth it.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Ben Conrad.
Yeah, you should come see our mentalist, by the way. He's going to be on the July 15th Art School Acid Dropout.
All right.
Watkins Mentalism.
Well, I will definitely have this up before then July 15th, I want to go and see the ball pit.
yeah, if it happens. I don't know if the money is going to be there, but if not, we're going to like do balloons or something like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for talking to me, Ben.
Thank you, Will Carey.
I appreciate you.
Take care.
That's our show, folks. Thank you again for listening. As always, you can check out my website, willcareyisfunny.com, for upcoming stand-up dates, including, again, my show with Tyler Richardson and Christy Cello at QED in Astoria on July 20th at 7:30 p.m. You can follow me on Twitter at @ComicWillCarey. You can also check the description for links to the shows Ben produces, and you can follow him on Twitter. And, folks, I know that if I'm reaching you, then that helps me feel less alone while I do this venture in comedy. So thank you for being there. And to the people who have downloaded my show outside of the United States, I would love to hear from you. So send me an email through my website, willcareyisfunny.com. That's CAREY isfunny.com, because I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear about your country. So I will see you next week between awesome and disaster. Take care.